book, Keys to Building a Successful Sports Organization. It is hosted by Jeff Marek, who bribed me to say very nice things about him, but he didn't pay me enough. But you see him on Scotiabank Wednesday Night Hockey, Hockey Central on the Fan and the NHL Network at noon most weekdays. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of hockey, and especially junior hockey, which you also see him doing CHL work, Memorial Cup, Top Prospects game, the list goes on. There's few things in hockey that Marek hasn't done. Matt Afinec, president and COO of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, joined the organization in 2010, VP of Stadium Development, actually. He was part of the stadium design phase for Tim Hortons Field, previously with the Argos. Very nice of him to be with us today. You kind of got a busy week. A little bit of a busy week. Busy weekend ahead. Tom Anselmi, the President of Business Operations and Chief Operating Officer of the Oilers, formerly with the Senators and MLSE. And lastly, Ron Francis, as you can tell by his sweatshirt, the GM of the new and soon-to-be Seattle franchise, formerly with the Carolina Hurricanes, and one of the greatest 100 NHL players in history on that official list. So, keys to building a successful sports organization.
Wait, more pinball? Like, aren't you done?
Thanks, man.
The nicest man in any room and the most inspiring man in any room. Before we get to our panel, another round of applause for Mike Pinball Clemens. Wonderful guy. So our panel is talking about building a successful franchise. Before we get there, first of all, congratulations to Matt and good luck to Matt. The most successful season in the history of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, which culminates in an appearance in the Grey Cup, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, we got.
Thank you, Ryan Hudecki. Appreciate that.
We're going to sort of drill down eventually and get to some specific questions, some questions from the crowd a little bit later on. But just to start to paint with a roller, and we'll go right down the line with this one before we paint with a brush. Sort of a wide brush question, what does it take? And I know this is a big one, and we only have a limited amount of time. What does it take, Matt, we'll start with you, the most successful immediately, to build a successful franchise?
Well, I think the sports business is like most businesses where, at the core of what you're trying to do, it's about the people, and building an organization that is always moving in the same direction and focused on the same goals fundamentally is a function of the people you have, because the people build the culture. And just a little history, I was fortunate to work for Pinball for 5 years and learned a lot from him about the importance of culture and people trumping scheme when you have people working in the same direction. So I think our approach in terms of building the organization is trying to find like-minded people who have the same values, the same approach to what we're trying to accomplish about team, and the business side of sports, the competitive side of sports are all rooted in how do people come together working towards a common goal to achieve something that we're all committed to. And at the end of the day, I think the common denominator in that is the people. So culture, people would be at the core of my belief on that.
Tom? Let's go right down the line.
First of all, Trevor and Burke and Patrice, thanks for having us all here today. These guys are leading the edge here, year 12 now. We all have an obligation to push our industry forward, and big leadership from these two guys, so thank you guys.
Yep.
Long list of things, and I would echo culture is kind of the root of everything in life, but it's a long list. The last one on it's probably luck. Luck plays into this crazy game of ours, and it really starts with ownership and the right vision, the right resources. It's about the right market at the right time. It's the right people on the business side, the right people on the team side, the right dynamic, and a common set of values and a common will and purpose of what you're trying to achieve. And at the end of the day, it's we call it winning on and off the ice, right? You got to have a business that is successful. You got to have a product that's successful. One can't live without the other, and so it's that whole dynamic of things combined with a little bit of luck and a little bit of patience and steady hand on the rudder and stick with the plan.
And Ron of the Seattle 32s, or whatever you may be called one day.
Yeah, that's the number one question. What is your name? But No, and it's almost like I'm going to reiterate what they said. To me, it's building your culture. It's all about people. You want qualified people that can do the job right, but you want people that are solid. I think it's a lot easier for people to be loyal and happy and when things are going well, but you really find a lot about a person when kind of the things aren't going well, and those are the people you want on board that are trustworthy and loyal and bright and willing to roll up their sleeves and dig in when things are tough. And so if you get the right people and establish the right culture, I think you can have a lot of success.
There's when it comes to sports, I mean, listen, Matt Squad is off to the Grey Cup. I mean, every night, whether it's national or whether it's a local game, it's a big event when it's the NHL, and Seattle is on the horizon, Team 32, and that's coming. And we tend to always focus on the big exciting things in sports. But there are large chunks of adult professional life that are very boring. Casey Weathers is a former first-round draft pick of Colorado Rockies and MLB, kind of flamed out, hard-throwing right-hand pitcher. And in a little mini documentary he did with Driveline Sports a couple of years ago, he talked about his training. And the point that he was trying to make is excellence is mundane. The things you do over and over and over again every single day where no one is watching eventually shows up on the ice, shows up on the field. Those things that are repetitive are the things that help make you great. Bruce Lee, one of the more famous martial artists, always said, I don't fear the man that can do 10,000 kicks. I fear the man that can do one kick 10,000 times. To the panel, what is the most mundane but fundamental things that you guys do every single day that maybe no one sees, is the unsexiest thing of your job, but is crucial to success on the field or on the ice? Tom, how about we start with you?
Wow. I'm a real believer in less is more. This isn't rocket science, this business. We're not splitting atoms or anything. It's pretty straightforward. You got to have a team that performs. You have a relationship with your customers. You talk to your people. You try and keep your people motivated. It's a business. It's not, it's like any other business. It's got all the same dynamics and functions of most businesses. Just happens to be our product is a different product. And so, it's less is more. Keep it simple. Keep the message consistent. We get bored with the message long before the recipients do, because we're repeating it all the time. And so, it's kind of rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And so, every morning I'm getting up, I'm either talking to some of our people, I'm talking to customers, or I'm talking to our owner. That's always happening every morning. What are we doing tomorrow to make sure the game the next day is going to be better? What are we doing to sell tickets? What are we doing tomorrow to sell tickets? If that worked, then let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. We're in an industry with a lot of innovative and energetic type A personalities that are always trying to do new things. That's leaders do new stuff, right? Leaders want to invent and innovate and do that kind of thing. And sometimes we got to stop ourselves, and when you find something that works, just get really, really good at it and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Habits, Ron.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything mundane in this business. I know when I first started in it, Jim Rutherford was my boss. He gave me the opportunity, and we had a crazy first 3 months, and pretty much everything happened. And I finally walked into Jim's office one day, and I looked at him, and I said, I'm not complaining, but I said, is it like this, every day? And he said, you've probably seen just about everything in the first 3 months, but he said, I'll tell you something, every day is something different, and you never know what it is. So I think you have to be ready to be flexible and do different things, to your point. And I think, Andrew Ferris would probably say the same thing. We played a long time in the NHL. You see a lot of guys, and they know what they're good at, and they continue to do what they're good at. It's the guys that want to work on the areas that they need work on to be better and sort of round themselves with. I think those are the people that really can have long careers and have a lot of success, because they're willing to look at their flaws and improve those as they move forward as an organization.
I believe at the core of great organizations is the ability to communicate and the ability to understand things that might fall out of your kind of purview of direct responsibility. So to answer a very eloquent question, what do I do every day? I try to make time and effort to communicate and speak and be on the floor, be out in the office speaking with our staff to get an understanding of what are the challenges and opportunities in the short, medium, and near term of what we're working on. This year for us, in addition to our Tiger Cat business, we launched a Canadian Premier League soccer franchise. So that business was kind of parachuted into our football business. So it creates a complexity with kind of similar people working on different things. And I think fundamentally my role is to lead a group of people, and I don't think you can do that effectively unless you understand the challenges and opportunities that they're going through to be successful in their role, because I genuinely believe if you make those people successful, the organization will be successful, and ultimately that's the job. So leadership, I think, comes from the front, and the only way to do that is to be involved and active and make sure that you're showing people with your actions, not just your words, that you're there to support them, understand them, understand what they're going through, and communicate.
Is there such a thing for any of you gentlemen as a normal day? I mean, I know, Matt, it's not just football, but it's also the soccer team. You've helped build the stadium. There's always more than one thing on the go. I mean, Ron's got this tabula rasa, this blank slate to create an entire hockey organization around. Is there such thing, Ron, we'll start with you. Is there such thing as a normal day?
Well, I think it depends how you define normal. In our case, this is a unique challenge for me. I've been a GM before, but you walk into an organization, a lot of your people are already in place, a lot of your structure and the things you use are in place. In Seattle, the beauty of this is you've got a blank slate. So I get to create the culture, I get to hire the people I want. I get to work with some pretty good people, and Todd Lewicki is my boss. He's got a tremendous record. What he's building from a culture standpoint in Seattle is outstanding. We got a brand new rink being built in downtown Seattle. We're building a practice facility 7.5 miles north. We're building a brand new rink in Palm Springs. He's got me in on all those meetings, all those discussions. I'm in a marketing meeting, sales meetings, you have it. So there's a lot of things going on. And I think that's what's really exciting about the opportunity to do this is, we wanted to go out and scout, and then all of a sudden we sit there and look, well, we don't have a scouting platform, right? So we have to build that platform, we have to go get it. And it's been every step of the way, we have to do something different that we don't have. So it's a unique challenge, it's a daunting task, but I gotta tell you, it's absolutely thrilling to have this opportunity to do this and create something from the ground up.
Tom, is there such a thing as a normal day for you?
This is it's a great industry, right? And it's a great business because people care about it so much, and because of that, no, there isn't really a normal day. I mean, everything is new and different. I've been doing this 20-something years. I mean, I can imagine what Ron, what these guys are going through in Seattle right now. I've been through a bunch of startups myself. It's just a fantastic industry because people care about it so much, and so because of that, you're always encountering new, and you're always looking to do things better. We compete on the ice or on the court or whatever, but we are all business partners off of it. So we're always sharing best practices and learning from each other, and taking old ideas, making them better, and it's a terrific industry for that. And because of that, every day is different, and that makes it a lot of fun.
Matt?
I echo the sentiments on the stage here. I would say that in a pretty fluid environment and a pretty fluid business, and I know you guys can relate, some of it's kind of seasonal, time of year is different where you're at, but for my own personal approach, I try to find a degree of normalcy every single day relative to the core kind of blocking and tackling of the business, for whether it's speaking with ownership or leadership, speaking with my own direct reports, reviewing financials and numbers. Those are kind of certain disciplines that you try to approach despite the environment being fluid, and you have to respond to things that you commit the time every day to make sure that you're aware of the fundamentals of what makes your business and your organization successful. Because I think I've learned that if you don't apply that level of discipline, that can get away from you sometimes, and just, everyone has their own routines and their own schedules, but if you devote that hour or two every morning to make sure that you're touching in on the blocking and tackling and the fundamentals of what makes the business successful, I think that's the normalcy that I and we try to apply to our business. But I certainly agree that most things are fluid in this line of work.
Guys, there's decades worth of experience up on this panel here right now. And I am curious, guys, about learning from history. Mark Twain once said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes." Given that everything is constantly changing, and what was true yesterday isn't true today, what was true 10 years ago in your industries is certainly not true today. What can you guys, given that reality, learn from your history and apply to today in an ever shifting landscape, both on the ice, on the field, and off of it? Tom, we'll start with you.
We should have rehearsed these ones first. Huh? These are hard ones.
Coming in with the heavies for you, Tom.
You know, I think there's all kinds of things changing in our business. You know, I worry about season tickets, and you know, Brian talked about the average season ticket holder goes to 4 or 5 games now in most cities. And so is that, you know, we asked them to write a big check at the start of the year, and you know, those kind of things I worry about. I think fundamentally, though, you know, the thing I'm encouraged by is human beings like to socialize and share things together, and sports is one of the great ways to do that. It's one of the chances where we all get to express and share emotion and share joy and share frustration and all that kind of thing. And so I think that underlying human need is always going to be at the core of sports. At the same time, you got to do that live, and so that makes us a more valuable media property, which is a really important thing. All of that is at the core, and then everything around it is kind of changing. How people consume it, how the different millennials consume it, or how social media plays into it, whether they buy 4 season tickets or 32 mini packs. I was talking to Todd a while ago in Seattle. They're thinking of no season tickets. They got 30,000 people on the wait list. Sell mini packs to everybody or half seasons. You know, they're thinking of all those kind of things. So
32,000 on the waiting list.
Take the dough. Take the dough. Contractually obligated income. You know, so everything's changing on the outside, but at the core of it, you know, we've got something here that is so important to people and so unchanging, and that's what's really good about it.
Is there a constant, Matt? Further what Tom was talking about. I mean, Tom talks about, you know, at the end of all of it, people like-minded people like getting together to enjoy a commonality that is sport. Something from your background that you can say, you know what, this is still true even though it was 10 years ago, and things are all different today.
Yeah, I'll answer that, but I'd say first that the question about history and its application, I think history fundamentally creates institutional knowledge in an organization, and sometimes that institutional knowledge is what to do or what to not do. And you know, we sit here and, you know, we're playing the Grey Cup in a couple days, but you know, a couple years ago we were 0-8 and missed the playoffs. So, you know, the learnings of 0-8 missing the playoffs are applied to, you know, obviously having a more successful season. So I would answer the question about what role does history play to use the institutional knowledge it creates to guide yourself about what to do, but also what not to do. You know, listen, I totally support and agree with what Tom was saying. The comment around kind of social and socialization, I think what we've learned is, you know, at the core of what people are making those decisions around is time, right? I don't know, I'm not suggesting that people's time is more strained now than it was 20 years ago, but that seems to be at the core basis of why you see kind of people butting up against their desired frequency to attend events live, which I don't care what league you work in, that's still at the core of most of our businesses. You know, our example or our situation down in Hamilton, you know, we're 6 years into a brand new facility, and just watching, I would have told you, and Trevor Whiffen is a season seat holder, he attends often, that 6 years ago when we built this place, if you would have told us that at any given point there'd be 6,000 people standing outside of their seats, not sitting in their seats because they're more interested in socializing and, you know, partying and doing whatever they do out of their seats, that while the game itself intrigues them enough to attend in the first place, it's not the thing that's going to keep them glued to their seat for the entire duration of the event itself. So I think as an organization, as a sports property, you need to respond to that pretty quickly and put assets and measures in place to make sure you're fulfilling that need, or else, you know, the same, pick a number, 8, 10, 12,000 people that are just there to watch the football game, they'll always be there, but that's not going to pay the bills and drive our business. So you need to be responsive to what your customer tells you they want based on what they purchase and how they behave.
And Ron, you're in that interesting spot. I mean, by the time you guys drop the puck, everything's going to be different. And so what you say today, it probably won't be applicable when you guys finally start?
Yeah, no, I think you certainly look at history and learn from the lessons and try and shape your vision of what you want your team to look like. You certainly have your core values. I think it's interesting in our profession that, you know, at times it becomes a copycat league, right? This team won the Stanley Cup because they were fast. Everybody thinks they got to build a fast team, but by the time you build a fast team, it might be a physical team that won the cup by the time your fast team's ready to go. So I think it's important to take the knowledge, have your vision, but you got to stick to your core values as you build your team. I think we have the unique challenge in the sense that Vegas just did this a few years ago. Vegas got to Stanley Cup Finals, and everybody expects that we're either going to get to the Cup Finals or win it in our first year. What they did was absolutely remarkable. And if you talk to George and you talk to Kelly, they'll tell you I'll show you my plan. It was a 5-year plan. It was draft, develop, and be patient. He said, and then we got lucky, right? Things changed for him. Things went well. But they did a tremendous job. There hadn't been an expansion draft in 16, 17 years prior to theirs. So there was a lot of mistakes probably made by guys. This draft is having really relatively soon compared to when they went on. So, I think the GMs have learned from that. Things will be different. They have more time to prepare. So I think the sort of the parameters we're working with will be a little bit different. Vegas had nobody sitting on the outside. We have Vegas sitting on the outside because they don't participate in this expansion draft. So there's a lot of different dynamics. So, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that can take place. But as we talked about here, I think you have your vision for your organization and how you want your team to play and how you want them to represent your city. And then you have those core values that you build that vision around. And then the key is sticking to that and tweaking where you need to tweak to be the successful organization you want to be.
Before you guys were up here, Mike Pinball Clemens talked a lot about leadership and building leaders and surrounding yourselves with leaders, and the great line, if you're the smartest person in the room, that's your fault. There's another great saying that goes like this, when one teaches to learn. Tom Anselmi, you and I met when you were working MLSE, and every conversation I've learned something. I've cherished all of our conversations. Over the course of your career, not so much what have you taught people, but what have you learned from others?
Wow, lots. I learned to spend time around the right people who you could learn from. I learned to listen, and I'm still not very good at it, but but I've learned to listen. And it's one of the challenges we all have, right? Communication that Matt talked about is at the root of all relationships and of all learning. And so if you can do both sides of it, talk and listen, that's a real advantage. At the end of the day, you're right. It's not about being smart. It's about doing the right things. It's about having good values. It's about having a bit of a plan. It's about building relationships. It's about hard work. I mean, all the fundamentals of success have very little to do with intelligence. They, are a lot more about, luck is where preparation and opportunity meet, or whatever that expression is. Is exactly what it's about, and doing the right things and doing things right.
Matt, what's your biggest challenge right now in your role?
Trying to project what's next, how big of an impact it'll have on our business and our people, and how we're prepared to respond to it and for it.
That's interesting. I'm curious about how you do project 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think it was Henry Ford who once said, I didn't ask people what they wanted because if I did, they'd say they wanted a faster horse.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
You listen to people and you talk to people, and those at the core of that are your season seat holders, your customers, your corporate partners, because at the end of the day, that knowledge and that power of the people that fundamentally drive your franchise, your business, support your players. You might miss a little bit, but you're not going to be entirely off course. If you credibly and genuinely find ways, in different ways, not just conversations, but surveys and data and different things that you do in informed decision making. But at the core of that is having good information to draw those conclusions from. And I don't think there's a better place to get that information than just speaking and communicating with your customers and your stakeholders.
Ron, I want to ask you about Seattle here. I think people are curious as well. Alex Mandricki, she was already there when you got there, or was she Ron Francis hired?
Yeah, Alex was hired by the organization on a month-to-month basis, and she was told that her future would be determined by the incoming GM. I'm really happy to say that I didn't scare her off. We actually signed her to a long-term contract a few weeks back.
That's a fantastic hire and great signing. She's going to do wonderful work and already has in this industry. Alex Mandricki, I guess the buzz term is analytics. I just refer to it as information. Worked with the Minnesota Wild previous, and she is heading up your analytics department. Do I have that correct, Ron, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, she's my lead analyst in that department.
Talk to us about how you put together a team. What does Ron Francis look for?
As far as just the hockey team itself, the entire organization?
The hockey team specifically.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, the perfect player has all the things you want, right? He's got great hockey sense. He's fast. He's highly skilled. He's physical, and he's got an extremely high level of compete. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of those perfect players, right? so
chuckling you're hearing is from Brian Burke in the front row there.
Yeah.
Brian refers to those as unicorns, I believe.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, you can't find those perfect players. So you have a vision of kind of how you want your team to play. And you're trying to look for players that have those attributes. And if somebody's missing in a certain area, maybe somebody else is stronger in an area. Like I look at my career, and I was never a fast skater, but I think I thought the game well, and that allowed me to sort of compensate for my lack of speed. You could think of where the game was going and get there maybe a little bit quicker than my feet could get me there, and that kind of helped me offset that. So I think it's a challenge, especially in our business. You're looking at kids that are 18 years old, and you're drafting these kids and trying to say, what is this guy going to be at 22 or 23? So again, it's communication. You're trying to talk to coaches. You're trying to talk to trainers. You talk to their billets. You talk to, wherever you can get information from. What kind of individual are they? What's their character like? How do you think they're going to progress? What's their family background? And you work at all those things, and hopefully you're right. But in this business, with a lot of those decisions, you're taking calculated risks, and a lot of times you're not right. But you have to, as long as the process, I think, is correct in what you're going through, and then you go back and look at it if you miss, and you adjust your process, if you have to. But you're just not taking flyers at things. You're actually putting in the time and the effort to build a structure, and when you make your decision, it's based on solid information, and hopefully you're accurate at that point.
Tom, we look at this audience here today, everybody with a lanyard on, and there's a lot of these people that want to be Tom, that want to be Ron, that want to be Matt. What advice would you have for them?
Do stuff like this, get embedded in the industry, meet people. How do you differentiate yourself? This is a real competitive business, and it's not all that big an industry. I remember when we were running Maple Leaf Sports, I think we were the biggest company in the country by a long shot. We had about, 600 full-time people or something like that, 8% turnover, so we're looking for 40 people a year, in an industry that's now pumping out all kinds of graduates and that kind of thing. So, really, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you, how are you going to help the organization be better, and how are you going to help your teammates be better? It's not unlike a lot of what Ron was just talking about on the ice. You're looking to assemble a group of people, and you need to figure out what are you good at, and what do you bring to the table, and how do you communicate that and differentiate yourself from the next guy, and then go and do it. We're not splitting atoms, like I said. It's about a little bit of hard work and putting your head down and being a good teammate, and being about the end product and a group and a collective effort and collective success, as opposed to your own success. That'll always lead to your own success.
Further to that then, Matt, we're not putting a man on the moon. We're not cracking the atom. How does someone become the next Matt?
What I would encourage is an audience like this is differentiate yourself based on what you do, not what you say. I agree with Tom's comment that no one's, or I would say that no one's ever drowned in their own sweat, right? And I still feel like in 2019, people can differentiate themselves not just on their work ethic and what they commit, but what they actually produce and deliver. It's not just about running around and working hard; it's about getting things done. And that seems so commonplace and so cliche even that you would say that, but my experience is often people arrive with this glamorous view of what working in pro sports and in the business of pro sports is, but want that, but don't necessarily want to go through the labor and task of doing that actual work. So to an audience like this, differentiate yourself by your work ethic and your results, and there's in my experience always going to be a place for people like that.
Ron, there was a further to that point by Matt about sweating. A famous quote from a British field general in World War I. He said to his troops, "Keep going. We sweat so we don't bleed." How much of this, because you already mentioned luck, how much of this is sweat? Is just plain old-fashioned hard work?
Yeah, it's like defensive hockey. I think it's 95% hard work and 5% positioning. So. To follow up on your question about to me, the most important thing for the people in this room is get your face in front of as many people as you can. And you got to find a way to get your foot in the door. Don't get hung up on a title. Don't get hung up on how much money you're making. Get your foot in the door. If you get your foot in the door, then you have the opportunity to show them what you can do. And that's going to get you the title you want and the money you want. I retired in my 23rd year in the National Hockey League making over $5 million. My first job for the Carolina Hurricanes with Jim Rutherford, I started with a salary of $35,000. All right. That was, Jim said, I don't have a lot of money. This is what I'm going to pay you. And I said, it's not a... It was okay for a little while. But the key was, it was a test to say, am I going to go in there and just kind of say, hey, I've had this Hall of Fame career and I'm not going to work at it? Or am I going to roll up my sleeves? Am I going to show you that I'm going to sweat and I'm going to go out there and work? And that's kind of the message. You can't go in there expecting that you should be given things, whether it's money or title or responsibilities. Get your foot in the door. Once you get in the foot door, you have that opportunity to show people, and that comes from the hard work and the sweat to show people what you're capable of doing.
Now, I'm sure you noticed I didn't ask how someone becomes the next Ron Francis. Not everyone out here is going to be able to have a Hockey Hall of Fame career and do the kinds of things you did on the ice, to say nothing of what you did off of it. Before we get to questions, and those are coming up here in a couple of moments, just down the line, with the best piece of advice you got all your way up. For me, when I started my career very early, one of my first program directors said, your job doesn't start when you're on the air, your job starts when the elevator doors open. Matt, we'll start with you. What's the best piece of advice, maybe the best conversation that really helped your career along the way?
I've been extremely fortunate to be around a lot of great leaders and people I respect both professionally and competitively. But I would actually go to my boss today and our owner, Bob Young, who's been a very successful entrepreneur, and many in the room probably know his story. But what you might not know if you haven't spent time with Bob is, despite his professional and entrepreneurial success, his preaching of humility, his preaching of treating people with respect, his preaching of despite any of that type of business success, you would never know it, being around the man, and this genuine approach to daily life and daily interactions of rooted in humility and respect for others. I would say that that's advice that I try to take with me every single day, and as an organization, whether you're parking cars in the parking lot or sitting in the owner's suite, there's this organizational view to people in business and how they impact our business, rooted in the humility that comes from our owner. So I would say that would be probably the thing I would single out.
Tom?
Probably lots of great advice along the way, but I think there was something about it's your skills that'll get you through the door, but it's what you're about as a human being that'll determine how far you can go. I'm a real believer in optimism and attitude and those kind of things that you can't teach. You can't teach somebody to be a good person. You can teach them to do anything, but you can't teach them to just be a good person, to care, to be positive, to have a great attitude, those kind of things. And, that really determines what your ceiling is and whether you have one or not. And, I can hundreds of people along the way that that we've ended up pushing them through the organization and creating opportunity for them, not because they were smarter or because they had a better background than the next guy. It's because we believed they would do what they needed to do to try and get there and would make people around them better and that kind of thing. So very much about attitude and optimism, I think.
Ron, we'll finish with you, and questions in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I got called up from junior to NHL, and Terry Chris was my coach, and on the way out the door, he said, keep your eyes and ears open, keep your mouth shut. And fundamentally, that's kind of a pretty good thing. Your eyes, you're observing things. Your ears, you're listening to things. I do think you need to talk, you need to communicate, but don't be the one that's telling everybody what to do, right? I lost my dad over 5 years ago at the wake, at the funeral. A gentleman came up and worked with him for 20 years in the steel plant, and he said, I worked with your dad for 20 years. He never once introduced me as, this is the guy who works for me. He said, we always work together. And to me, that is, you show people respect, you have that humility, and I think you get their respect back by showing them that you respect them.
Hall of Fame words from Ron Francis. Questions?
Hey, Ron. My name is Jen Mueller. I'm a sports broadcaster based in Seattle, so we'll be chatting very soon.
Look forward to it.
One of the things leaders have to do is set expectations. You mentioned the expectations that are in place based on Vegas's success. So do you temper those expectations, or how do you address them with the fan base and then with your own team?
Well, I used to say that you want to be the second GM in Seattle, but unfortunately I wasn't smart enough to do that. I took the first job, so we have to live with the expectations, and that's our goal is not to compare to Vegas. Our goal is to build an outstanding franchise for the people in the city of Seattle. I think we've got a fantastic ownership group. Everything they've done and all the decisions they've made, they want to do it right. They're going to give us every opportunity to be successful, and it's our job to build a team and organization that makes that city proud and has success on and off the ice in the community, because I think that's important in Seattle.
So my name's Tony. For purposes of the conference, I'm a hockey fan. I think this question's first for Ron. Jeff referenced the hockey strategy and research department and Alex and the hires there. Versus your previous roles, how do you think you'll use that resource differently? And then maybe for Tom and Matt, for your organizations, how are you integrating sort of that new sort of skill set and people resources in your organizations and integrating them into how you guys make decisions?
So in my job in Carolina, I mean, it's well known. I hired Eric Tulsky as my analytics guy. To me, I've always said it's a balance and a check. I mean, I see certain things on the ice, and then the numbers are either going to back it up or they're going to make me look at it a little bit differently. I don't take the numbers 100% and say they're absolutely right. I don't take my eyes 100% and say they're right. To me, I have to blend those together. So it's getting the right people. I think we're very fortunate in Seattle to have somebody like Alexander Mandrecki. He's fantastic. We just hired a young gentleman, Danny Chu, to come on board with us. Impressive resume. He had all 4 major sports leagues chasing him, and he ended up choosing us, which was outstanding. And we've got 3 more opportunities that we're looking for right now out there in the open market. When I went through the interview process in Seattle being a highly tech city, it was very important to our ownership. And that was one of the questions I got grilled on, like what's my view on it, and I'm very open to it. I think it's very progressive, but as I said, I think it's a blend, and you got to use it the right way rather than just exclusively as taking the numbers and saying that they're 100% right.
Most of the experienced GMs I've talked to would say the exact same thing. Analytics is one piece of information that goes into the decision-making process, and in business it's the same thing. I've got 2 or 3 analytics people that are looking at our sponsorship business, our ticketing business, and it's the same thing. It's one piece of information that goes into developing a strategy for where you're trying to go next, and all that's good stuff. And if you got Connor McDavid playing for you, that helps too. I mean, it's one piece of information, right?
It's too much quantitative and not enough qualitative. So it shows up, guy blocks a shot, killing a penalty in the first period, takes down the shin pad. But a guy dives in front of one with 14 seconds left to preserve a win. It's the same block shot on the stat sheet. It doesn't show enough differentiation in a lot of the categories. So you got to blend it.
Yeah, well, I think you can even dive deeper on that. There might be a guy that's fantastic at blocking shots, but when you dive in a little deeper, there's a reason why he's blocking shots is he can't move the puck out of his D zone, so he's in there more times, and that's why he has to block shots. So I think there's a lot of things that play with it, right? So there's a lot of things you have to look at within the structure, not just sort of take it.
Matt, we'll finish with you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions.
I would certainly echo that. I'd say in the football business, it is a huge part of our business on both the technical and the business side. Though I would say, the quandary with information is it should inform decision making, but it's not a strategy in of itself. So I think what you pull out of that is like Tom said, use it to inform decision making and guide your strategy. But in and of itself, it is not a strategy, and that's the way that we approach it.
With that, we'll wrap. Applause for our group. And Ron, best of luck with Seattle. Tom, continued success with the Oilers, tops of the Pacific. And Matt, good luck on Sunday.